Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Will and today we're here in Sprocket again and we are going to be building a super heavy multi-turreted land ship kind of dealio in the new geometric internals update, which means we're going to have to actually battle with the interior of this thing, which is going to be interesting because we've done these before, but we've never had to actually deal with the human factor of them before, which I imagine is going to be a little bit of a challenge. But yeah, those of you who are going to be inevitably asking the question, where is the contest? That will be coming fairly soon. I am still in the process of judging it. We had so many entries that I just could not get it done in time for this video, so I'm just uploading this as a bit of a stopgap measure, but it's still going to be a good video. Don't click off, please. Anyway, building, yes. And hello everyone, it's post-commentary Will for the first time in the video. Yes, we get to build a tank together once again. We're doing a lot of this at the moment. That is not because I don't want to play any flyout, it's just that when I go and I look at building a plane in flyout, and then I look at building a tank in Sprocket, I see on the Sprocket side brand new shiny things, and I see on the flyout side there hasn't been an update in a while, and my brain is just like, I gotta build a tank, because there's another new update for this. You may see at the bottom right, I'm not in that update. I kind of just started doing this after rating some of the tanks. I'm hosting a 25,000 subscriber contest at the moment, as I alluded to at the start. That was started in 0.22. I made a backup of the game in 0.22 in order so that I could judge them without you having to resubmit with the new weight restrictions that are applied by transmissions. Blah, blah, blah. I swap over to the new version before the end of this. The new version doesn't do a huge amount visibly with the tank, so it wasn't breaking anything, but it does change how the transmissions weight and a little bit of the logic with how the transmissions work. Changes that up quite a lot, so that's what we're not having at the moment. But that's fine, because I haven't put any of the internals into this tank yet. Well, I say that just as I'm putting the crew actually in. So, how many turrets do we want? I was aiming for 5 in my head originally. I downgraded to 4 because it dawned on me that having 5 turrets meant I had to make 5 turrets. And you'll very quickly see that the strong downside of making 5 similar looking turrets in this update. Yeah. There's a small problem. Okay, so I've been trying to throw together a rough shape here. As you can see, we've got this main superstructure going on, and then we've got 2 turret holes in the front where I'm going to try and get 2 turrets sat side by side. It could be a little bit challenging to squeeze these both in without them clipping together. I might have to revert to 1, but as you can see, we got 1 dude sat in this turret already, and then 1 dude in the middle here on the front, which should, in theory, leave me enough space for, you know, everything we need in the front of this tank. I'll probably put some internal walls in to, you know, split these guys up a little bit, but maybe not. And then I need to work out some kind of firewall situation with this engine, which I've not really done on any of my previous tanks, but it really should be done because it's a good idea. Yeah, I'm going to try and get the second turret in, and then we'll try and get these looking reasonable enough, probably without a mantlet for now, before we put on the main turret. And all in all, I think these turrets came together pretty nicely. Obviously, this is just the first one you're looking at here. The rest of them end up looking very similar, and I do have to fight quite a lot to get the plates to play ball with the circle tool, but I go for this very Panzer II, Panzer III kind of cut on the underside of the front of the turret. I don't really know what it did. I guess it gives you a little bit of room as you're rotating the turret for, like, things around the turret. It gives you a little bit of space. I don't know if that's what it's for, but it kind of looks cool. Okay, we've got a template for a turret here. This didn't take too long to get looking good, but I didn't want to overdo it because one thing I'm going to have to do now is, since we can't copy and paste any like compartments at the moment, I'm actually going to have to manually recreate this turret on the other side. Part by part, which is going to be difficult. I'm going to do my best to get it as close as possible, but yeah, it might not be the easiest. And this is definitely one of the challenges of doing a tank like this, is just trying to get these two turrets side by side here. I do have a couple of inverted faces on the front of this tank. Because I've used the circle tool in order to generate them, I didn't want to go through the hassle of actually fixing that, so that does stay the same, and if you do download this tank, that will still be the same. If you want to go through the effort and fix it yourself, feel free to download the file. It'll be in the description below. You can join my Discord. There will be a channel in there called Tank Repository, and there you will have the files for this thing if I remember to upload them. If I haven't remembered to upload them, you have full, absolute casus belli to at me, or someone who will at me. I don't mind that much if it's for something important, and I consider not uploading the tank blueprints quite important, which I never ever do. I just always forget, and I'm sorry, my brain is just like a colander. I spend like 4 or 5 hours making one of these videos straight in a day, and then I just completely collapse dead for the rest of the day, and that's... That's the period where I really should be uploading the tank file, and instead I am dead on a sofa, probably playing like Candy Crush on my phone or something. Not actually Candy Crush, it's normally other terrible mobile games, because YouTube's added that thing where you can now play games in YouTube. But I have YouTube Premium, which means I can play those like insanely mind-numbing, like stupidly simple, absolutely like zero effort stupid games. You can play those with no ads if you have YouTube Premium, and so that means I get to experience what the people in the adverts always get to experience. And I don't know why, but maybe it's the 2024 brain rot, but that just tickles the right spots of my frontal lobe, man. Okay, 2 turrets on the front of this thing. I think they might be a little bit too close to one another, in that they can kind of clip into one another, but what we can do about that is we can kind of limit the traverse, I think, either side, so that each turret can aim like 90 degrees to its respective direction, but not towards the other turret. That should help a little bit. Okay, there we go. Now we have our turrets, and we can only rotate 90 degrees with either turret at a time. There is still a little bit of clipping going on. I'd like to minimize that. That may involve shrinking the whole turret, which is going to be a right pain, given that I've just duplicated the entire thing. There is still a tiny bit of clipping going on. I think I'm going to call it an acceptable level of clipping, because frankly, this is an extremely difficult thing to get quite right without completely changing the design. And yeah, we're just going to stick with it. It's good enough. just don't collide the turrets, idiots. It's fine. And I'm really missing that copy-paste compartment feature. Okay, that's 3 out of 3 turrets placed now. They are a little bit different from the front and the back, but I think once we've got the rest of the tank in, it's not going to be as noticeable, so fingers crossed that doesn't become too much of a problem. You're never going to be able to unsee it now, though. So that's all of our small turrets on the tank. Now we've obviously got this big flat area on top for the central turret, and one problem I kind of ran into with making this thing look proportional is this mount that I have for the turret is a rectangle. It's wider than it is long. So a turret which would normally fit in a square, you've got the circular base and that nicely fits on a square. That's normally what you would do. Because it's a rectangle, it means that I'm kind of going to have a big flat area to the side of the turrets. I'd like to think on the final iteration of this tank, the one that you may have seen in the thumbnail if you actually paid attention before you clicked through to the video, apparently some of you don't do that, which is absolute lunatic behaviour. That's how to get like 20 people to click off the video who don't do that. But yeah, I hope that I've done something better than what you're seeing here, which was just attempt to cover it up by slapping loads of little cloths and stuff on the side of it, which just didn't work at all. It doesn't last particularly long. And here I'm also trying to cram some crewmates in. I do eventually move the guy in the commander position at the back to be sat above the other two with a cupola covering his head, so that is a little bit less cramped in the final version than it is here, which allows me to put a slightly bigger gun on this thing, which is always good. Big gun is always better. Okay, so there we go. We've got a general shape-ish for how we're going to put the guys inside this tank. Now we just got to actually detail up a little bit around this main turret especially, and then a little bit on the hull, just because it is still feeling a little bit plain. But yeah, I think this is a generally decent overall shape, so we'll go with this one. The confidence in Past Me's voice was actually undermined by an incredible amount of anxiety that this design wasn't going to work. It was about this point where I was ready to give up on this thing, and that would have been a real shame because this was about 45 minutes of work just to get to this point. This is by far and away the longest build I've done in a long time in Sprocket. This was approximately 3 hours of straight work. Normally my tanks are like an hour and a half-ish. This is about twice as long as I would normally spend on a tank. And I do think I had to cut some corners to get it down to even 3 hours. I'd love to spend longer making these videos, but ultimately there's a certain level of, you know, how many videos I want to get out in a week, and I try and aim for like 2 in a week roughly, but I'm also working a full 40-hour work week, 8 to 5 every single day of the week. I am completely unable to work on anything YouTube, so I'll get home after work at like 5:30 to 6, depending on how long it takes me to get home, and all of a sudden, my day's gone. I've got, 5 hours max, and I need to make the video, I need to eat, and I need to find some time to just cool down after the day, so there's just not really enough time on weekdays, which means a lot of these videos end up getting made on the weekend, and then I'll normally split one video across like 3 days within the week or something. It is a little bit tough to squeeze these videos in, but I hope you're not too upset by the amount of time that I dedicate to these videos and the amount of time that I have to work on them. Fingers crossed you guys are happy with the amount and the quality of the content coming out, and if you're not, I want that fed back to me, so do let me know in the comments. I don't want people unhappy with the quality of the videos that I'm making. Ultimately, if it's an unacceptable quality, if I'm not building to the level that you would expect, and that's making you click off, or the videos aren't coming out regularly enough, I'll have to work out something. Because this is a passion of mine. I really enjoy doing this YouTube thing, and I don't want to give it up. And one of the things that would make me give up is if literally everybody stopped watching. So don't do that, please, because the views help me motivate myself. And they've been good because of the Sprocket update lately. It's been fun. Okay, I've got a custom mantler on one of these. I'm dreading doing it on the rest, but there's something going on here. I'm not convinced it's the best custom mantle I've ever done, but I kind of did it with the knowledge that I was going to have to duplicate it 2 more times on 2 more of the same turret. Oh man, please give us duplication of compartments. Yeah, these mantlets did take a little bit of time because, well, first you've got to make the turrets, and you've got to make sure that all of the turrets look similar enough, and for the front 2 turrets, because they're right next to each other, I don't really get a lot of leeway, so those are basically identical, and I was copying over the positions of each individual node to make them as similar as possible. They're still not exactly the same, but they're very, very, very close. And then on top of that, you've also got the mantlets for each of the turrets, and I wanted to flip them around, but I also wanted to have them looking similar, so that the gun would be on the left-hand side turret, and the gun would be on the right-hand side turret. I don't know if that's really the most logical way around to have it. Maybe they both should have been the same size, because then it would maybe improve the amount of reused parts on the tank, and that would decrease the number of production lines and casting molds you would need. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever. It's done now. This is in the past, so apologies. Yeah. This is so badly needing the saving compartments tool again. You don't realize how much you miss it until it's gone with these kind of things. But yeah, I mean, take your time, Hamish. Don't worry about it. It's obviously right now this as this video goes up, there is a development break going on, and if any of you are particularly upset about that, I just want to point out, like, you know, ultimately the product is going to be better if the developer of the game is not completely burnt out. Burnout is the reason that, like, EA games absolutely suck most of the time. You got to avoid it, or games are bad. Okay, so we still need a mantlet up on top here, but we've got the 3 on the small guns, and they're each armed with a 37mm gun, slightly offset so that the breach doesn't blow back and smash them right in the face, which they kind of would, but, you know, just move your head to the side, you'll be fine. We've got some doors to get in and out of this main superstructure, because I thought it was looking a little bit weird with the way that it was. I think this looks a little bit more, how do you say, practical, I guess. And there's definitely some more tweaking I want to do. This is not my favorite build so far, and I want to really have this thing reflect the amount of time I'm spending on it, because this is definitely one of the longest builds I've done so far. So fingers crossed we can start getting this thing to look really, really cool soon. So I added this, like, ramp section with a hatch on it for the crew to, you know, get in and out of this main superstructure segment, and I think it makes sense. I do think it's one of the less good looking parts of the tank. I wish I had kind of planned for it earlier and designed around it, but oh well. There's a couple of ideas that I have now in hindsight that maybe should have been implemented at the time to make it look better, but all in all, you know, the back of the tank is maybe letting down the front a little bit, but I just make the thumbnail the front of the tank, and you just look at that side, because that's the side that's going to be facing you if you are an enemy of this tank, so therefore, the back doesn't need to look good. I'm sure it's fine. Don't worry about it, and everything will be all good. Yeah, sure. I did play around here with a couple of rivets, but I didn't want to rivet the whole tank, because this took quite a long time just to get these small amount of rivets in place, so I just kind of left it at this small line. They're not too noticeable, so it doesn't look that weird that you've got one riveted plate, and even if you do see that it has just one riveted plate, kind of makes sense that it's on the engine deck, so oh well. That's okay, isn't it, really? Okay, fair amount of progress since last time. We've done a little bit more detailing on the old hull. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some panels to the side here to kind of hide this gap in between where the tracks are and where the hull is. That'll give it more of a neue Fahrzeug kind of look. As you can tell, this is gonna be German. Didn't want it to be exactly a neue Fahrzeug, hence the slightly different turret arrangement, and I kind of wanted it to be a little bit newer, so we might have a slightly bigger gun, maybe a 7.5cm gun, but yeah, I mean, I've just got to do the gun mantlet on the top part, and then we're roughly getting to the point where it's going to be wrapping it up and trying to get the fine things that are irking me about this design worked out, because there are a couple things that do feel a little bit off, but overall, I'm pretty happy with it, especially from the front. I think it looks really mean. Oh, I've just thrown this together really quickly, but this angle here, I am really liking. I think that mantlet really does bring things together quite a lot. I'm going to keep working, obviously, but I'm pretty happy with that so far. Past me is right, this mantlet absolutely brought together the front of this tank. Previously, I hope you agree with this, it looked really, really odd. Just something about not having a mantlet on that top turret kind of brought your eyes further down to the lower parts of the tank. I feel like you're meant to have the top be this kind of pinnacle. I don't know, it's weird to describe, but it felt very much like as if you had the mantlet of your tank in the middle of it rather than on the turret at the top, and now it's brought it all together. I don't know, there's probably some, like, explanation behind that some artistic people can talk about and go, yes, well, you see, it's because of the corneal cortex and your left brain talking to you. I don't know, man, this is just, I'm just making tanks on the internet. I really can't wait for combat in this Geometric Internals update. I'm imagining we're looking at, 2 or 3 months until combat is actually implemented, if not slightly longer. So I'm not getting my hopes up for it being particularly soon, but I am super excited for it because these tanks are just so much cooler in my mind now that you actually have this internal representation of, where your ammo is, where your fuel is, where your crew is, and I can't wait for some of the more ridiculous things that you can do once the actual combat mechanics are out. I kind of want to build a tank which exploits the AI's aiming, see if we can build like a hoop tank where they just shoot straight through the middle or something stupid like that, because, yeah, why not? I don't know how good of a video a hoop tank would make, but maybe it would be good. Maybe you want to see that. I don't know. Do you want to see a hoop tank? I probably wouldn't want to see a hoop tank, to be honest. Okay, here we go. We've got a pretty solid looking vehicle here, if I do say so myself. And I think it's about time we start testing this thing actually moving around. So in theory, most of this tank should be set up. I haven't set this guy up with the steering wheel, but other than that, those 4 remaining turret drives are all the custom mantlets, which don't need to move. So in theory, we're nearly there. I'm just going to set up my gearing real quick. Okay, we got some seriously chunky gearboxes going on, and all of this fuel, so we got plenty of fuel in this thing. And that is all, if we just go inside here, that is all firewalled off. I've just used the plates. So, in theory, you've got the main crew compartment, which I would subdivide a little bit more if I had a little bit of time, but ultimately this video has to be done at some point. So in theory, I think we've got a reasonable amount of mobility going on in this thing, actually. A little bit more than perhaps I expected. Is that... Oh, look at those. That's interesting. That's not quite right, is it? Okay, floating ammo racks corrected. There's a bit of a weird shape going on the back of the turret there. Okay, here we go. So now we should just be firing with the big 105 on top. I don't have a strong enough laying drive. Whoops. Okay, now we should have enough torque on the gun to actually raise and lower the thing. There we go. We can hopefully fire this 105. There we go, and that is not a half bad reload. So this has about, I think it's 133mm of penetration, so it's not a world-beating 105mm gun, but as an anti-infantry kind of deal, it's definitely going to do the part, and given that this would probably be somewhat early war, we've also got these little 37mm turrets that should be pretty decent. Now, these aren't going to fire particularly rapidly because the gunner is also the loader. See, as you can see, he's a little bit overworked. However, it's still not the slowest thing in the world, and we've obviously got 2 on the front that are exactly the same, and then also this one on the rear, which can rotate quite a fair area. So we can go, I think, 90 degrees to the right, and then also 45 degrees to the left. It's not quite as far to the left because of this kind of ramp section where you would get into this massive superstructure. So that is why that's the way it is, and there's a plate that's doing all kinds of funky stuff there. I have no idea what that's doing. Okay, I've corrected most of the plate funkiness, but I think there's still a couple of issues going on, but yeah, oh well, that's what you kind of get. All of the guns firing at once in every which angle is quite the sight to behold. Let's do a little bit of a top speed test and see where we can actually get up to with this thing, because I reckon we should be good to crack about 30 miles an hour at the very, very tip top, because we do have 7 gears on this thing. We're only in 5 at the moment, so yeah, in theory, we can, reference last video and break the speed limit in a... I'm not going to say it again. Come on, here we go. 7th gear, last gear. We've got quite a few more RPM to play with here, but we probably won't reach the very top of the RPM range. This is only pushing out at peak about 318 horsepower, so it's not the most powerful thing in the world. As you can see, it takes a while to get up to speed, and on rough terrain, it'll probably struggle. And you know what, speaking of rough terrain, we can give it a shot on the little suspension test here and see just how awful it is. Here's the steering. it leaves a little bit to be desired, doesn't it? The steering. Maybe I'll make some bigger steering gears, but the gearboxes are already huge. When you've got a tank this long, this is the reason they didn't really do that. They couldn't turn very well. Okay, we should basically not even notice this first set of bumps because we are a big old heavy tank. So this should just, yeah, absolutely slide underneath us. A little bit of slowing down, but nothing too bad. Medium ones up next. We're going to probably feel these ones quite a lot more. I can't lie. Okay, here we go. Build up a little bit of speed. We're hitting these at a very slight angle. I'll just fix that up. And not too bad, actually. That's pretty good. That's not much slower than we went over the other ones, and we didn't have as much speed running up to it this time. I have noticed this side doesn't quite have the right mud guards, but I'll fix that in a second. That's just a little bit of visualness. It doesn't really change anything, so oh well. Okay, and finally, the big boys. These are probably going to slow us down quite a lot. Oh my gosh. And yeah, I mean, all things considered, that's done pretty well there. And given that we have not a lot else to do, we'll do a little kickflip off this rock, and then we'll call it a day. Why don't we? See what kind of a angle we can get this tank to sit in for the little cinematic camera position in the ending. Aiming to get my right track on the side of this ramp and my left one dangling, and then we can fall, hopefully. Oh. Okay. And that is the best I could have possibly hoped for an outro picture. It looks, if we rotate all the way, it looks like it's just stood on some slightly off terrain, doesn't it? Well, if you did enjoy this one, it's not my proudest tank I've made in the world, but ultimately I'm all out of time. So if you do think you've got any ideas on how to improve this thing, feel free to download this. Hopefully I'll remember to put the files in the tank repository channel of my Discord. But anyway, if you did enjoy this, let me know what you thought about it. Let me know if you have any improvements in the comment section below. And I will see you next time for more stuff like this. The next video probably being either flyout or the Sprocket contest, but there will be a flyout video in the next two. That is my promise. And we might play a little bit of kit hack now that that's out in early access. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the future. Goodbye. And as always, a huge thank you to this channel's patrons: Ambroise, Camjam135, Cody N, Digipede, Gavoon, Gammaster929, Sad Cat, Jack Not Angry, Just Casualty 611, Lasted 11, Mildly Invested, Relax Panda, Rolls Spocken, Ryan Brody, Stug3, Terror, The Kinesian Emperor, Worthsicle, and Zeit Wolverine. Thank you so much for your support.